Thanks so much for the warm welcome. It's a complete delight to be back. So the two readings we've heard just now, they're coupled because both are said to be about persistence in prayer. But the dynamics of each situation are quite different in several ways. For a start, God is the assailant of Jacob, but God is absent in the parable of the widow. Jacob realizes that by the end that he's been wrestling with God. The widow is not wrestling with God, and that is partly the point of the parable. She is wrestling with a judge, and God is not like that judge. The second difference between them is that Jacob has a problem, but he doesn't know what it is. And this is something he must learn through his encounter. The widow has a problem, and she knows full well what it is and acts clearly upon it. And a third way they're different is that Jacob needs to let go and be open to God, whilst the widow needs to keep going and not give up. So I want to explore these stories a bit more. Jacob thinks his problem is how to stop his twin brother Esau from killing him. Having taken Esau's birthright and his blessing when they were younger, he has lived in fear and avoidance of him for many years. Now he is coming back and sends company ahead of him with an abundance of appeasing gifts. Once alone, Jacob is attacked. The being who wrestles him, a man, an angel, God, the text is deliberately ambiguous. This being struggles all night, and as dawn approaches, steps up the assault and tears Jacob's hip from its socket. Then, at Jacob's insistence, he blesses him. The blessing reveals the real nature of the problem. Jacob must become Israel and give up wanting to be Esau with Esau's birthright and Esau's blessing. Jacob has to let go of the fears and stories he has spun and hear his true name and birthright. And for that to happen, God had to reach deep inside him. The soul becomes one with God, writes Teresa of Avila. But the approach to this core is like being most delectably wounded. The widow knows her problem. The judge can't be bothered with her grievance. She prevails not because the judge gains a conscience, he doesn't, but because she wears him down by her continual petitions. It is not God that makes the unjust judge relent. There is no one who stands in for God in this parable. Jesus tells this parable so that his disciples will not lose heart or grow faint, but persevere in prayer, because if even an unjust judge will avenge a widow because she persists, God, who is just, will help quickly those who cry out to him day and night. But now we might have a problem, in that God does not always or often seem to help those who cry out in prayer. I remember vividly a 3-year-old Syrian boy shown on the news, being held down on a hospital table during the siege of Aleppo and shouting, "I'm going to tell God about this." A.N. Wilson, in his recently published essays, Confessions, writes about a priest who, when asked by a mother to pray for her child, said, "Yes, of course, but in all my years as a priest, I have not known prayers to make a bit of difference." I'm going to leave this hanging just now and tell you first about someone I recently met who is persisting just like the widow in Jesus' parable. Last month, we hosted Dawood Nasser at the Edinburgh University Chaplaincy. He is a Christian Palestinian farmer in the West Bank whose farm is surrounded by 5 illegal settlements. He and his family have been taking their situation to the Israeli courts for 4 decades. And in fact, they do not expect justice. But he says we keep going for 4 reasons. We refuse to be victims, and so we stand up for ourselves. We refuse to hate. We are people who behave differently because of our faith, and we believe in justice. Therefore, they continue to defend their rights legally, and this channels their energy away from other possible responses, including giving up and leaving their land or retaliating with violence. Their farm is called the Tent of Nations, and it operates under the banner, "We refuse to be enemies." They invite international volunteers, and I have flyers that can be shared with you afterwards. They look for visitors, and the visitors are very important to them. Now, since they in the Tent of Nations don't expect justice, they try, as Dawood Nasser said, they try to embarrass the system, showing it up as unjust. Embarrassing the system is also what Jesus did through his teachings about tyrannical masters, self-righteous teachers, and unjust judges. The systems that need embarrassing, Dawood Nasser says, are not only the Israeli courts, but the way that religion is being instrumentalized on all sides for political purposes, with people trying to make God a tribal God. Jesus also embarrassed forms of religion that were not doing as they ought, that were perpetuating the core injustice done to humanity, which is that we are cut off from God. Any system, religious or otherwise, that further separates us from God was in Jesus' sight, and he urged his followers to pray with urgency, persistence, and humility, asking God for help, because, as he said, some things can only be driven out by prayer. Like the widow in the parable, Dawood's insistence or his persistence focuses his energy. Prayer is a discipline of focusing our energy. In prayer, we bring the hurts and harms of the world to the source of love by which we are loved. Jesus asks, when the Son of Man comes, will he find this kind of faithfulness on earth? It is more automatic instead to lash out in multiple directions, especially in highly charged situations in which we feel both wired and helpless. The terrible violence between Israel and Gaza has had people all over the world, including in universities, operating on high alert, ricocheting off the reactive behaviours of one another. We know that anti-Semitism has risen in the last few years, along with Islamophobia and anti-Arab sentiment. And we're not passively visited by this polarising dynamic. We are all caught up in the dynamic and must choose how we respond within it and where we channel our energy. Worshippers at Heaton Park Synagogue pointed out that it is shocking and sadly not surprising that tones of violence lead to threatening behaviour and to physical violence. There is so much in us that needs dismantling. The feelings and fears we project so that we cannot see in each other our neighbour, our sister, our brother. Jacob needed to wrestle the whole night long to make up for the years of wasted energy in envying and fearing Esau. Paraphrasing the biblical theologian Walter Wink, God is powerful to heal, and all healing is of God. But if judges don't care, or if illegal settlements continue to build round farms and the courts obstruct justice, or if institutions and social structures release toxins into the water we drink and the air we breathe, or allow asbestos to get into baby formula, then God's healing power is sharply reduced, and children die of diseases. Wink's point is not just that we should accompany our prayers with action, but that sometimes social action is not enough. We must batter away at the principalities and powers with prayer. Biblical prayer is impertinent, he says. It is persistent, shameless, indecorous. It is like haggling in an Oriental bazaar. The much-loved 20th century Rabbi Abraham Heschel says it this way: it is improper to call upon the congregation saying, "Come and pray." Instead, we must say, "Come karev," where karev means offer our sacrifices, satisfy our needs, wage our battles, and bring us close to him. Amen.
Let us stand to profess the faith in which we seek